Я долгое время хотела организовать эту встречу, писала тебе несколько месяцев назад, и очень рада, что ты согласился. Представляю, сколько предложений тебе поступает ежедневно. Ты действительно очень интересная личность. Ты переехал из Америки в Россию. Почему Россия?
Why Russia? Well, there's, I don't know, 100 different reasons now. Originally, my only goal was to come here, stay 2 weeks, report about what was happening in Donbass, and then go back to America. Um, Also, the fact that some of my lineage is my grandfather is Russian. He's unfortunately passed, and so I always had this, I guess, pull as I was growing up, learning about my heritage to come to Russia. But what really motivated me was to come here and tell about what was happening to people in Donbass. I came here just to, I mean, that was my only goal. 2 weeks in Russia. I mean, of course, I wanted to stay after what I experienced in Donbass, but my only goal was to come here and tell Americans what's happening because, during Euromaidan, they had, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all the major Western outlets telling us Ukraine's full of Nazis. Ukraine has, right sector, Kraken, Bandera, all these different Nazi battalions, and they're being trained by the UN. And then when the special military operation started, it flipped, and now it's Russia's fault, even though America was the agitator.
Ты был на Донбассе. Я знаю, что тебе удалось пообщаться с местными жителями. Как они на тебя реагировали?
So when I was in Donbass talking to the civilians, of course, I wanted to ask them questions that I thought would upset them, like who's doing this? Obviously, I knew who was doing this, but me telling people my personal opinion as an American to Americans, I could say anything I want, right? Because it just seems like if you're on television or if there's a big bold headline, nobody's going to read the article. Nobody's really going to absorb anything except, oh, well, I got to trust this person. They're wearing a suit and tie. Information is important. They're an important person. But I can't tell people back in America my personal opinion because it could be biased. So I wanted to ask these people uncomfortable questions like, who's doing this? And they were more than happy to answer. One lady, she actually looked at me and she said, well, Russia's over here and her house is here. Ukraine is over here and the back half of her house is damaged. So on the Russian side, her house is fine. On the Ukraine side, her house has been hit by mortars. So it's obvious who's doing the damage. But you have to ask these hard questions so that you can report back to America what's really happening. Every single person I talked to in Donbass all had the same answer. Nobody said it's Russia. Everybody said it's Ukraine.
Твое мнение. Кто это делает?
Oh, even before I left the United States, I was 100% sure it was Ukraine. And I was a journalist in the United States telling people for a few years what was really happening here. But, it's just a personal opinion from my couch in my house in the United States. So when people were like, well, why don't you go there and find out yourself? I said, okay, well, I will. But I knew who was doing this, of course. I'd seen enough evidence from different content creators or journalists to know that it was, of course, Ukraine, like what we're seeing in Kursk right now. People, Russian citizens being murdered by Ukrainians. It's obvious, and the world's not really saying anything about it. Of course, Russia and its allies are like, this isn't acceptable. But America and its allies, they're like, there's nothing. No, it's not happening. But we have the husband of a woman who was murdered in her car telling us it happened. Why would he lie about his own wife being killed by Ukrainians? So it was important for me to come here and tell these stories to people. News in America? No, of course, Ukraine's in the headlines every day, but it's always Russians invaded. That's their narrative. Yeah, of course. I mean, as an American, most Americans would agree with me that we have a right to succession. Like, for instance, the formation of the Confederacy during the Civil War. You had states that succeeded and then they united under the Confederacy to fight against the Union, the United States. as an American, and I believe in succession, I believe that the people, if they don't want to be represented by their government, they should have the right to succession, to be able to be away from that government. And so these, new territories, the LPR, the DPR, they essentially, as an American would explain it, succeeded from Ukraine, and they had the right to do so. It's unfortunate that there's, the other side of the United States, that these people are the same people who will scream on Thanksgiving that Americans are occupiers of Native American land, but then they'll turn around and they'll support all these agendas like Ukraine and people not, being able to succeed and live their lives in happiness without having to worry about their government, like Poroshenko, all the different individuals like Zelensky who have ordered their militaries to attack civilian populations. And so they wanted to get away from this madness, of course, we know this, and they, had a referendum and then reunification with the Russian Federation. And so that's another thing that I'm always trying to explain to citizens of the United States, that you believe in this, but when another country or another people want to do this, you don't believe in this because the government of the United States tells you, no, don't believe in that. It doesn't go, it's not in favor of our agenda. These people need democracy. But what kind of democracy? American democracy? We see what that's led us to in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, everywhere America goes. The people are damaged. Look at what's happening right now in Palestine. You've got America supporting Israel. You got America. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm kind of rambling and off track, how the United States can supply weapons and money to Israel. They kill civilians, and then my own government takes more taxes from me to drop food and supplies into Palestine. Like, pick a lane, pick a side here. Feed the people who are being hurt and only supply them with funding, and stop supplying both, because that's exactly what they're trying to do in Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia. They're trying to destabilize these regions because they're competition.
Изначально ты хотел побыть в России недолго, несколько недель, как я поняла. Что заставило тебя здесь остаться?
Oh, I wasn't forced to stay longer. I guess I changed mentally in Donbass after seeing so much destruction. It was pretty terrible. Like, the first day we were there, we were shelled, and I couldn't imagine living there for 8 years, just constant shelling. Something a lot of people don't know about in Donbass is that the Ukrainians cut the water supply to Donetsk. And so people for years have been filling jugs with water. It's unfiltered, and that's how they flush their toilets. That's how they take showers. That's how they cook. These are the conditions that they've lived under for years. And once I experienced all that suffering, just a brief experience of suffering, I realized how resilient these people are, how strong these people are, and it opened this anger in me. It made me, I already disliked my government, but it made me want to fight against my own government. And so I knew I couldn't go back to the United States and do that. I have to do that from here. Well, I've tried to actually go and join up, but everybody keeps convincing me to stay here and just keep using my voice because they think it's more powerful. And maybe they're right. I think that they're probably right, but there's a part of me that wants to actually go into action against my own people. And if there were to be, God forbid, a war between our nations, I would rally with my people against my government.
Как давно ты был в Америке, и есть ли сейчас проблемы у тебя, чтобы туда попасть, в связи с тем, что ты здесь говоришь правду и рассказываешь о всей этой ситуации с другой стороны, не с той стороны, которую преподносит правительство Америки?
Tomorrow will be 1 year. So here's the article. The New York Times, U.S. investigating Americans who worked with Russian state television. The FBI raided the homes of 2 prominent commenters, and of course various others, on Russian commenters on Russian state television channels. Just imagine commenting, like, I'm giving you an interview right now, and if my government doesn't like that, then while I'm away living here in Russia, they can go raid my house right now. They can tear it apart, bust the door down, tear it apart, and just leave it wide open. And then how am I going to secure my own house? For what? Coming here and telling the truth. And here they're saying, this is part of an effort to blunt attempts to influence November's election. I'm sorry, but how is it influencing election by telling people that our government is supplying multiple countries with weapons that are being used against civilians? That's not influencing an election. That's telling the truth about the situation.
Как ты думаешь, большая часть американцев, они думают так же, как и ты, или они разделяют мнение правительства и верят в то, что им навязывается там?
Thankfully, it's about 50-50.
Yeah.
Before I left, I would say it was 60% supported Ukraine, 40% supported, well, I wouldn't say they supported Russia, but they didn't support Ukraine. Now I would say about 50% of the United States is so tired with inflation and everything that's happened because of the failed, well, there's so many factors. I won't get into this, but it would be 50% of the population that probably supports Ukraine still. And 50% of course, who are sane people who watch a lot of journalists living here in Russia, and they're receptive to the information. And they're tired of suffering under the policies of the United States government. And so with Vladimir Putin's newest amazing decree that he just signed, now my people have, I would say I guess refer to it as a lifeboat to leave that country and to get away from all of the agendas that the United States is pushing on its people.
Чувствуешь ли ты здесь, находясь в России, что из-за санкций мы как-то в чем-то ущемлены? У нас есть недостаток продуктов или других предметов необходимости?
No. Sanctions, it's actually funny because I make a lot of content for my American audience showing them all of these companies that allegedly left. All their products are still here. You can get it, Coke from Saudi Arabia, you have everything still here, but I think Dobray's better. I think every Russian, even if Coca-Cola comes back here, should boycott Coca-Cola and only stay with Russian brands. But I've seen in the last year that I've been here, the majority of the clothing I wear is Russian. I try to only buy Russian brands. I try to only support Russian companies. I think every Russian should too. These Western brands, they're low quality. They're, even us in the United States, we don't wear all of this. Russians are like, oh, look, Armani. We don't wear that. Well, we don't. I don't know where they get this idea. I think it's Hollywood. It's targeted advertising, but Russians actually think that this is all great. And I'm just like, but I think sanctions have helped Russia. And I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't know. But I know that I see all these new companies in the past year that I've been here opening. There's this company that makes these amazing shirts that I always get on wild berries, made in St. Petersburg. Russian made is a quality brand too. It reminds me of like when the United States still produced their own clothing. It was thick, it was comfortable, it was well made. And now we have all this junk coming from all around the world that's low quality. And I'm really proud of Russia and everybody who's decided to stay here, start a business, and create these quality products. And I just wish Russians would embrace this more instead of going down to Dubrovka and buying all these fake knockoffs or all of this low quality junk, and start supporting Russian brands. But I know they are because these businesses still exist and they're flourishing. No, there is no suffering. I don't personally drink a lot of soda, but you have Mountain Dew, Sprite, Coca-Cola, everything's still here. McDonald's, who cares? A Kusna Tochka is better, way better. I think it's better ingredients. Everything here, even Rostix, the KFC, everything's still here. If it's not the same, it's changed names, but it's still here.
По поводу еды это интересно. Ты не первый, кто говорит, что уровень обслуживания, качества, насколько это вкусно, в Америке он гораздо ниже, чем в России. И будет интересно посмотреть на твою реакцию и услышать, так скажем, твое мнение, когда мы после подкаста как раз отправимся в одно из кафе. Оно будет стилизовано под американский стиль. Там будут блюда, скорее всего, знакомые тебе. И мне интересно, что ты скажешь, действительно ли это так, и даже американские блюда у нас здесь чаще вкуснее, чем там.
It's better here because it's GMO free. Yeah, of course. Especially the milk, everything here's better.
Путешествуя по России, знакомясь с новыми людьми, чем мы отличаемся от американцев и чем мы похожи? Что ты можешь сказать про менталитет?
I don't know if I want to answer that. I feel like I'm going to get in trouble here. Are any Americans going to be seeing this? I'll answer. The difference, this is going to get me in hot water with a lot of Americans, but Russians are, I would describe them as hyper intelligent. You have a better education system. Most Russians are bilingual. I would say Russians think things out. They don't make rash judgments. Americans, we receive information and we automatically make a decision. And Russians are like, well, let's sleep on it. And that kind of drove me crazy when I first moved here because I don't like to wait for answers. I like to know like immediately. And Russians are like, no, let's think about this and then make a decision. And I've grown to really, really respect that. And Americans, they're rash. They make rash decisions. So those, I guess that's like the main difference. But really, we're not different. Besides, I mean, we all smile, we all laugh, we love our families. And, you know, in American media and movies, Hollywood, etc., they think that you're all alcoholics riding around on bears and you live in Siberia and there's 8 foot of snow everywhere all year round. It's never warm here, that people are cold-hearted and evil. And that's not true. Russians remind me of Americans, especially from where I'm from. And, you know, I'm from Virginia, and it's considered the South. And you have the North, which is like New York, and then you have Virginia, like the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia. And where we're from, we say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Like, we're very polite. We're very giving. We take our shoes off when we walk in the house. We wash our hands. We're very, very similar. Now in the North, they're completely opposite. They're upside down. They don't wash their hand. No, I'm kidding. But they're different than Southerners. You know, people like, we call them Yankees, but people like me, we're Southerners. And I would say Russians are very, very similar to Southern people, especially in Ossetia, like Vladikavkaz. They're like Floridians. You know what I mean? They're a whole special breed of Russian. They're just absolutely hospitable and amazing people. I mean, all Russians are.
Что касается улыбки, я слышала, что, ну так говорят, многие американцы всегда улыбаются, они не могут выйти из дома без улыбки. Если, условно говоря, ты находишься в Америке и не улыбнешься другому человеку, своему собеседнику, то у тебя начнут спрашивать, все ли с тобой в порядке, нет ли у тебя каких-то проблем. А в России часто ли тебе улыбались или не улыбались вообще? Потому что иностранцы некоторые говорят, что русский народ, он очень угрюм, мы никогда не улыбаемся и достаточно осмотрительно, аккуратно относимся к новым людям.
No,
No?
that's not true. No. No. No, I can't lie about it. No, in America, we don't always smile. If you're a woman and you smile at a man, he's going to smile back. If you're a man, you smile at a man, he's going to be looking at you like, why are you smiling at me? Unless they know each other, of course. When I first came to Russia, I was smiling at everybody. And the women were mostly smiling back. The older people, because they like to chat and they're lonely, they smile. But when you smile at other people and they're not receptive, they'll give you this look, like Americans do. We do the same thing. If we don't know you, why are you smiling at me? I hear that from Russians a lot. They think we all just walk around smiling and that we have these fake personalities. It's not true. If you come to, like, a lot of Russians, they have 3 destinations: California, New York, Florida. If you go to New York and you smile at somebody, they're going to be confrontational. I mean, not always, of course, but if you smile at the wrong person, they're going to be like, why are you smiling at me? You know, because New Yorkers have little time to mess around. They're always on the run. In California, I don't know, it'd be kind of like Moscow, maybe, depending on where you are. Maybe they'll smile back, maybe they won't. If you come to my state and you smile, or Florida and you smile, everybody's going to smile back because everybody likes to be happy. It's warm. We have the beach. We have a lot of things to be thankful for. So when somebody smiles, we think, ooh, new friend. Especially if you smile at a elderly person who's lonely. How's the family? How are the kids? And if they see you again, they're going to remember your family's name, your kid's name, and they're going to be like, how's everything been? How's little Danny doing? Because they genuinely care. And that's the way a lot of Russians here are too. But in the West, they think, oh no, Russians, they don't care. But I have my own neighbors who are like, hey, how have you been? What's been going on since I saw you last? What was this like? How was the vacation? Like, they actually care about their people, their humans. But no, that whole thing about how Americans just walk around smiling and they have these fake personalities, it's not true.
Путешествуя по России, часто ли тебе встречались люди, которые могли с тобой на понятном, достойном уровне говорить по-английски?
Yeah. Yeah. Every day I meet people that speak English. Sometimes I'll make content or I'll be on the phone and people will come over and politely stand near me to wait for me to get off the phone or stop doing what I'm doing just so they can talk to me. Just today, 3 different people, 4 now. Yesterday, at least a dozen. So yeah, people speak fluent. There's a lot of Russians who are bilingual. I know Russian that speaks 12 different languages. So that's why I say they're hyper intelligent, because a lot of them are bilingual. And in America, we can barely speak English half the time because we speak in so much slang. In like the beach areas where we're all like, "What's going on, dude?" Like these kind of. So, yeah, there's a lot of Russians who speak English.
Ты учишь русский язык, чуть-чуть уже выучил. Каков он, русский язык? Говорят, что он звучит жестко, как-то грубо даже. Что ты скажешь? Каково это учить русский язык?
It is difficult. Every time I try to learn Russian, I end up in these situations where I'm always doing interviews. I'm always making content, and my main audience is the West, English speakers, because I want to educate them about Russia. I travel all around Russia and I show them, hey, look, they have roads, because in America they think that you all drive around on dirt roads or your roads are terrible. And so I'm trying to combat all these misconceptions about Russia. And unfortunately, and I'm not getting paid for any of this, but unfortunately, I don't really communicate daily with a lot of Russians, even though I'm surrounded by Russians, because I'm so busy just trying to create content for the Western audience so that they can see what's really happening here. Not what Hollywood's telling them, like it's cold, it's dark, people are angry, they're lined up outside the grocery store, there's no food. I'm showing them, hey, look at the food, but not only look at the food, look at how cheap the food is. So, to answer your question, no, I'm not learning Russian. I want to learn. I'm learning a little bit. If I hear a word and I think I can pronounce it, I'll ask how to pronounce it. Although I did walk around for a year saying I'm cold by saying kolodna. And I just learned it's not pronounced kolodna, it's holodna. So I've got a few more years to go.
Ты сказал, что основная твоя аудитория — это американцы. Возможно, в большем процентном соотношении, но я точно могу сказать, что русские люди следят за твоим блогом, читают, и когда я захожу в комментарии к твоим видео, рилс, я вижу прям русские комментарии, ты очень откликаешься нашим людям, и число твоих подписчиков, кстати, достаточно быстро растет в социальных сетях. Много ли людей пишут тебе из Америки, американцев, какие-то важные слова, может быть, благодарность за то, что ты транслируешь вот эту правду? Много ли сообщений тебе поступает в директ, в социальных сетях?
Yeah, every day I receive on average 300 to 500 messages from Americans. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and I recently created a website called RussianMigration.org, and they can contact me there as well. That was to help people migrate here, and thankfully to Vladimir Putin for this new law in regards to letting people come here if they're tired of neoliberalism in the West. Now the internet traffic on the website's driven up and there's more questions. I try to answer as many people as I can, but it's just too much. I'm one person and I have so much to do. But it's like a passion. It's not a job. It's not a hobby. It's like a passion to help people because so many people in the United States feel trapped. And so, yeah, on a daily basis, hundreds of messages.
Ты путешествуешь по России. Какая следующая точка будет твоего путешествия? Где ты хочешь оказаться и почему?
I would like to go back to Northern Ossetia. I really love the mountains there, the people, the environment. I don't know. It's a tough question because I've traveled to so many places and experienced so many things already. Right now, I just kind of want to sleep. I've been traveling so much, and I've just not caught up on any sleep. Maybe like Lake Baikal or something like that. Kamchata, something, yeah.
Когда ты впервые приехал в Москву, какое впечатление произвел на тебя этот город и что, возможно, удивило тебя здесь больше всего?
I have to back up in order to explain to you the emotion. Coming to Russia wasn't easy. I left everything, my entire life, everything I built, material things, friends, family. And I knew by coming here, I thought there would be a risk I may never be able to return. And now we know I can't go back. And I'm glad I can't go back. I don't want to go back. So coming here, I brought information into Russia about what my government did on January 6th, video footage of my government attacking civilians, video footage of my government telling civilians that they can enter the Capitol, and now those civilians are in prison. And so when I brought that footage with me, the FBI had already seized all my social media accounts to keep people from seeing the footage that I had posted on social media. But by bringing that footage here and knowing that the FBI already had me on a list, my heart was pounding until I touched Russian soil. All the way from America to, Europe. When I got to Serbia, I felt safe. But when I got to Russia, I remember crying, like trying to hide my tears, getting off the plane and feeling freedom. So when I came to Russia, when somebody in America talks about freedom and they describe freedom, I don't think they really know. It's just a word to them. They talk about freedom, but they don't know what real freedom is because they're not being threatened with imprisonment. Most of them aren't being threatened by the government because they, follow the rules. But for me, it was like all this, feeling like I was a prisoner in my own country for years because of, just being a journalist and speaking out against my government. And then stepping off that plane and feeling like, oh, dear God, thank you. I'm safe.
Это правда, что в Америке ты не можешь себя чувствовать безопасно даже в метро. А в России, к примеру, в Москве, в метро ты чувствуешь себя более чем безопасно. Оно чистое, и здесь нет таких проблем, которые есть там.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's very safe here. There's people who have come here because I've encouraged them to come here. And some of them are women. And they came and they said it's the safest they've ever felt in their life. One lady just came. She went back to London. And I was actually just making a video about this. She had made a comment that she had never felt safer. So when I'm here in Moscow or anywhere in Russia, really, I feel very safe. It's clean, it's safe, the people are nice. Nobody minds when I walk up to them and I start speaking English or using my translator because I'm lost or something. And it's really hard to get lost here because a lot of the signs are in English. And of course you have GPS and everything. But no, I feel very safe here.
Ты был на Донбассе. Можно вернуться к этому вопросу? Скажи, как ты думаешь, твои прогнозы, возможно, когда эта ситуация закончится и какой ты видишь логичный конец этому?
In my opinion, that's I upset a lot of people every day because I tell them it doesn't matter who is elected president. It's not going to stop immediately. Trump and his vice president pick Vance. They don't support it. I would like to see Trump leave NATO. If Trump leaves NATO, NATO will collapse. That would be a blessing to see that happen. In regards to when it will stop, when will the United States and other countries under its umbrella stop funding it? Now we see in Kursk, you have these foreign mercenaries, and Ukraine's exhausted. And why are Slavs killing Slavs? You know, because the United States sees Slavs as a potential threat to them. Slavs are strong. They're very strong. And the United States military right now is full of people who are dealing with the woke agenda. You know, right now they have sensitivity training because people's, sensitive needs need to be met. Could you imagine being a Marine and going to training because people need you to be more sensitive to their needs? Or could you imagine fighting along another soldier or Marine, and they were once a boy or they were once a girl, and they can't even pull your wounded body off the field? I know that sounds sexist in the United States, but it's factual. People are built different. And again, I just think that the United States wanted to destabilize the Russian Federation, and they did the worst thing by going in and indoctrinating Ukrainians. Not all, but the ones who are fighting, and I believe the majority of them who are fighting don't even want to be fighting. And so who knows when it ends? I mean, I can't tell you. It ends when they realize they're not going to win. Everybody knows it. The whole world knows that Ukraine will not win. So it ends when those soldiers say, I'm done. I'm being used. I'm cannon fodder. They're using me. They're going to kill me. I'm not going to be able to raise my children. I'm not going back to my wife. My parents will never see me again. It ends when those soldiers say, I'm done. When they all say, I'm done. I'm leaving this field. I'm going over here. I'm surrendering. I'm done with this. This is madness. That's when it ends. I don't know how many American journalists have interviewed Ukrainian prisoners. As far as I know, I'm the only American journalist to interview Ukrainian prisoners. One was a Nazi. He told me to my face that if they release him, he'll go back to fighting. And I looked at him and I told him he was a coward. He was just a little boy, like 18, 19 years old. Because here's a kid that came out of Avestal, and he was so indoctrinated that he was like, oh, neo-Nazism, this is life. No, man, this is not life. You're Slavic. These people have caused so much devastation, and now it's a 2.0 of this situation, and you're involved in this. You're a Slav. And then the other guy, he didn't even want to be there. They forced him into it. And there's so many people like that who were forced into the fight. Thankfully, the other prisoner was like, oh, I wasn't fighting. I gave up. That's the mentality most Ukrainians need to have. Just give up. It can end so fast if everybody the command doesn't care about those soldiers. Zelensky doesn't care about those soldiers. But those soldiers should care enough about their families to know they're not going to win. And it's just dragging on because the West keeps placing money into Zelensky's hands, weapons into Zelensky's hands, and killing innocent kids who have no right to be on that battlefield. They should still be united with the Russian Federation as allies. Like before all of this madness began, before Euromaidan, there should be some type of dialogue here, and Zelensky's not allowing this. It makes me so angry about what's happening, and I've seen these kids, and I've seen them dead in the fields, and they're kids, they're teenagers, they're young adults, they're somebody's son, and it just makes me so mad to know that my government did this. They sent John McCain, Lindsey Graham into Kyiv, and they said, we stand with you against Russian aggression. There was no Russian aggression. There was none. It was Ukraine bombing its own civilians who just wanted to be split from them because they're ethnic Russians.
Финальный вопрос, как просто у такого честного, открытого, мне кажется, очень доброго человека. Что для тебя есть счастье? В чем счастье вообще в жизни? Как ты это чувствуешь?
This is going to sound, kind of repetitive, but happiness to me is being right here in Russia. It's that simple. I mean, this is my happiness. I was in the United States. I woke up, I went to work, I came home, I went to sleep. I woke up, I went to work. I do that in Russia too. But in Russia, I know that I have a future. In Russia, I know that I'm making a difference. And in the United States, I was just a tax asset to the machine.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
No problem. Thank you.